getting loose at the Miami Dolphins New England Patriots game last night. We'll talk with him about that and plenty of other things. But, Dad, I am live with you in your little basement lair here in South Bend, Indiana. It is game week, Notre Dame, Ohio State, with all the marbles on the line here. College game day coming to town, so I had to come check on you.
It is finally on in college, right? Last week's schedule was really bad, though Colorado and Colorado State made it exciting because it was a horrible matchup week. But this is the week. This is the matchup this week. A lot of great matchups, including, as you said, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Game day will be here. I don't know if Fox will be here too. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to quite top what went on in Colorado last week. I'll say this. I think Marcus Freeman and Ryan Day are going to be a little bit less giving of bulletin board material for the masses, and I don't know if as many sunglasses will be sold.
I will say, if The Rock were to come to town, The Rock and I are tight, so we can bring him over the house.
Tight.
We can come hang out.
That's how you describe it, as tight.
Yeah, tight. He's been on the show years ago.
I would describe him as tight. I would say you're kind of loose.
That's not nice.
Like your skin.
That's not nice.
The way it hangs off your bones.
That's not nice. I know what you meant. You don't have to explain it.
I just wasn't sure.
At the Super Bowl at SoFi, when he did the on-field thing before the game, we hung and talked a little bit. You know, we've had him on the show over the years. So yeah, I think he'd like to come hang out here with the dogs.
So if you're so tight with him, why hasn't he been on the show here yet?
I don't want to bug him.
Can you explain why you haven't gone out and gotten us Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
It's so the normal thing, right? Just to get big guests to come on. I just don't want to be the norm. Okay, I don't want to be the norm. I want to be different.
There you go. That's the GoJo and Golic difference. We will break the norm and not get you The Rock on Notre Dame game week here. We'll have plenty more on that game as the week goes along, though. We're very excited about that. But Dad, I already can feel a simmering tension in the room right now.
There is.
Because we had great NFL games over this weekend that culminated in what we got to last night. And we will give you the 0-2 conversation about teams that need to be afraid of this daunting 0-2 start to the season cliff that has become this historical precedent. We'll get to all that. But on Sunday night Monday night football Monday nights tonight. Days are hard. On Sunday night football last night, we had a moment at the end of that game that could have changed everything. In what turned into a close game at the end between the Patriots and the Dolphins, that the Miami Dolphins ultimately won last night, 24-17 in the division. We had a moment that could have changed everything for large people everywhere. At the end of the game, the Patriots are driving to try and tie this game up. And Mike Gesicki, their tight end, catches the ball on a fourth down play. It is fourth down in the game. And Mike Gesicki gets the ball short of the sticks, and he's trying to fight off a tackler. He's looking around for something to happen. And then he sees the beacon in the night. He sees the hope. He sees the watcher on the wall. His offensive guard, Cole Strange, hanging in the background. And Mike Gesicki does what playmakers do. He tries to make a play. Tosses this ball back towards Cole Strange, who jumps up back across his body, catches this ball, triple extension, pulls it in, turns around, and then begins, like Jon Snow at the Battle of the Bastards, to fight off the masses and trudge forward through the sludge and ultimately land towards the first down. However, replay review goes under, led by hating-ass Terry McCauley, the rules official for Sunday Night Football, going and trying to point out, well, his knee might have been down. Well, we think we might have enough proof.
You mean the rule?
And then they go and they reverse it. And they ruin not only fun, a great game, but another moment in the large history of large men doing great things. Anybody who agrees with that call is an enemy of fun. Anybody who agrees with that call is an enemy of large people. So, Dad, much like in the movie 300, I would advise you to choose your next words carefully because they might be your last.
Oh, my words are careful. He didn't make it. I mean, as much as you want the story of the big man, the thick six, not in this case, it would have been the thick first down. If you want that to happen, he didn't make it. He didn't make it. First, Gesicki, feel free to break the tackle and make the first down yourself.
He understood he's not capable, and so he put it in the hands of someone who was.
Yeah, he wasn't capable. You're right. It was a great move, quite honestly. Linemen running downfield, which is what they should do. Gesicki saying, okay, I am kidding about that, about should make it, though. He should. Having the wherewithal to know he's not going to make it. This is desperation. It's like that last, end of the game where they just start flipping the ball around, and he flips it, and Cole Strange grabs it. He did a nice job. But he is an old lineman. The one thing he could have done at the end, which would have given him the first down, was extend with his hands with the ball. But I'm not going to fault him for
Patriot
that.
Players are taught not to extend near the goal line or any other place like that. Potential fumble situation there. He's just listening to the
It's fourth down in the game.
I'm just saying.
It's fourth down in the game.
You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training.
Do you think when Bill Belichick is making that rule that the old linemen are in that room? Do you think they're in that room? I think
everyone's in that room.
Do you think that was going through Cole Strange's mind as I'm going down here? If I extend, I'll get the first down. But Bill said don't extend.
Yes.
So I'm not going to do it.
He didn't think about that in the moment because he falls to the level of his training and his body was ready.
Then you know what?
That.
Okay, then Bill cost him the game if we want to go down that road.
All right, wow.
Extension.
So you're saying Bill Belichick's finally on the hot seat after this.
By extension, there you go.
Bill Belichick has had the game of football pass him by.
By the way, Cole Strange did not make the first down.
Okay.
You had the perfect shot right down the line.
Perfect.
You saw his knee on the ground. He had the ball tucked and cradled into his rib, which is a fine way to do it. So I don't think he made it. You think he made it. Jesse, you are the arbiter here. You are the final vote.
Well, I will say there's got to be like conclusive evidence after the replay, and like I don't know if they had it. So that's just what I'll say. It's got to be the burden of proof is on conclusive evidence, and I would say we did not meet that burden. That was my lawyer speak.
I don't understand on the one picture straight down the line of scrimmage, which sees his knee on the ground.
With bodies all over the place.
Ball, you see the ball tucked into his rib cage, and he's not at the line to gain. I don't know what more evidence we needed than that.
You know what? I don't know what more evidence I need to say. You probably need to retake your driver's test because I'm a little worried about you being behind the wheel at your age.
I will say, you guys, also in New England, this was just like a shot to the heart after that week 1 loss to the Eagles when it ended after an overturned fourth down, conversion there. So it's like 2 weeks in a row. It's just been really brutal.
I would say that this is kind of indicative of a trend now, Dad. And if you're the Patriots now, listen, this 0-2 hole, which, as we've mentioned, is one of the things that usually goes a long way in determining playoff status. It's a marker at the beginning of the season with some pretty damning stats on the other side for if you are 0-2, the difficulty in making the playoffs. Very few teams do it after this kind of start. And conversely, for 2-0 teams, you do make that happen. Despite you being wrong in this moment here about the great play by Cole Strange, it did finish off the game. And Dad, one where we went in wondering, hey, what was this matchup between the Miami offense and the New England defense going to look like? And I think you saw some plays certainly made by the New England defense. You saw a great interception by Christian Gonzalez that reminded you exactly why they drafted a player like that. Kyle Duggar making some great plays around the line of scrimmage. New England's rangy, dynamic athletes all over the field absolutely showed up. But what showed up even more was the game plan by Mike McDaniel and company on that Dolphins offense to use pre-snap movement and a couple of different variations of pre-snap motion throughout the game to give them just enough trouble and to get the ball out of Tua's hands quick to try and get and move the ball around against this New England defense.
So I think they motion or move 81% of their plays, which, I mean, they are constantly on the move, kind of like Andy Reid does in case he does a lot of movement as well. And I thought Tua was excellent last night. Didn't throw for 466, didn't throw for a ton compared to last week. Threw for 240 in this one, but 21 of 30. He throws a wonderful ball. He throws a catchable ball. These guys can run after the catch. Mostert ran very well, had a couple of touchdowns, including the long run, was 43-yarder to get into their 24th point. So I love what this offense is doing, and New England is going to be in every game because of their defense, not because of their offense. It's never going to be a high-flying offense. It's just not. We're going to find out if Mac Jones is going to be the guy by the end of the year here, but their defense is going to keep them in games, even though, you give up 24 points in this one. Listen, I picked Miami to win this division. I like what they're doing in their first 2 games. The passing attack and the running attack I think they had 30 passes and 30 runs. You can't draw it up any better than that.
No, and I think that's part of the way you've got to attack New England's defense, because if you're doing any one thing too long, Bill Belichick and company are going to cue in on that and be able to attack it. And part of being able to spread that around is the quarterback. You mentioned Tua making incredible split-second decisions this year. I saw per Next Gen Stats, Tua averaged the 4th quickest time to throw of any quarterback in a game since 2020 at 2.08 seconds. Tagovailoa is the only quarterback with a time to throw under 2.2 seconds to also average 8 or more air yards per attempt over a game in that span. So it's not only, Dad, that he's dinking and dunking short, it's the fact that Mike McDaniel and him are so prepared and so in sync with what they believe they're going to see, and the answer that they've got pre-snap for it, that Tua, all he needs to see is that one quick thing and then get the ball to that spot. And that bot might be somewhere downfield at certain junctures, or it may be along the lines of scrimmage where he's got enough fast, talented players to make things happen.
And the one thing we don't really say, and I think we've ever said it, is somebody owning Bill Belichick. Tua is 5-0. It's 5-0 against Bill. I mean, we know Miami has given New England tough times, but Tua is, because we always talk about Bill against first-year quarterbacks and what his record is, or Bill against this or Bill against that. Well, Tua is 5-0 against. So that's pretty damn good. They're a better team right now. And listen, New England made this one close by getting it to the one score and making it kind of fun at the end there to see if they got the first down, even though they didn't. But Miami's a better team than they are right now.
Miami is a better team than they are right now. When we have Ross Tucker on here in a little bit, I want to talk about how good we think Miami can be. If they are best team in the NFL type good right now, as through 2 weeks, we're kind of going to play this game with every team where we're trying to decide, are you more of what we saw week 1 or are you more of what we saw week 2? And Dad, that might also apply to the New York Football Giants.
Oh my gosh.
Sunday Night Football, we thought we were on the verge of burying this team. The Giants come back from down 21 points to go and win in Sunday Night Football in historic fashion. Their 21-point deficit they overcame for the first time since 1949. They had lost 150 straight games when trailing by at least 21 points, the second longest streak in the NFL here. And Dad, this game does not come without cost. The Giants also in this game we're waiting to see, have lost running back Saquon Barkley at least for a bit. He left and looked frustrated with an ankle injury late in that game. You saw him on the sideline slamming his helmet down, appeared to be pretty disgusted with the situation, but they managed to come back and beat the Cardinals, Dad, after going their first 6 quarters of the NFL season without scoring a touchdown. Did this game somehow make you more or less concerned about the Giants based on that outcome?
No, it really didn't. It made me, I guess you could say, a little less concerned because they won. But coming down from 21 down, let's also remember something else. This is the Arizona Cardinals, who pretty much everybody has consistently said is the worst roster in the NFL, and they don't have the starting quarterback in Kyler Murray. It's Josh Dobbs. Kyler Murray is still sitting out. He was on the PUP list, so he has to miss at least 2 more games. So while nice comeback, I called this game, them against the Cowboys in week 1 when they got beat 40-0 and looked horrific. And then, as you mentioned, down 20-0 in this one. So it was 60-0. They've been outscored. Kudos on the comeback, without question.
Sure.
I had said at the end of the Dallas game against the Giants that would be a chance for them to get well against this Arizona roster. And they were doing anything but. They were still throwing up all over themselves on the first half of that game. So a little better, I guess. But let's ease up on this one because it was San Francisco. Now they have a short turnaround. I would be stunned if Barkley plays. Barkley, it's an ankle. It was swollen after. They think it was a normal ankle sprain instead of a high ankle sprain. At first, we all thought it was a knee when we were watching, which would have been devastating. But he has missed time in 19, I think, with a right ankle sprain, 21 with a left ankle sprain. So he's had ankle issues. They have a short turnaround. They're staying in Arizona. They have a Thursday nighter against San Francisco.
Yeah.
You go from Arizona to San Francisco. Good luck on that one. But they're coming back from this deficit. So let's see what they can do. But I have a feeling it's going to be without Barkley.
Yeah, and we've said this a couple of times to start the season. And while the Los Angeles Rams yesterday may have proved that they are a little bit more than we bargained for at the beginning of this season, the Rams are not the 49ers are not a place that I would go to when you're trying to continue to get right. That is not a get right team.
No,
that
it
is not a soft landing spot for your hopes and dreams going forward into the future. And so for this Giants team, I really don't know what to make of them right now. Like 80-something yards in the first half, 358 total yards in the second half. It was a total Jekyll and Hyde performance, and you give them credit for adjusting. But this just was a team that we said, talent-wise, and we saw Jalen Hyatt had the big catch that really kind of kick-started things for them in the second half. He was one of the few guys that you brought over that was an answer to a question that you needed coming off of last year about what you were going to do to push the ball downfield. And so maybe because he's a rookie, as that goes along, that becomes more consistent part of their game. But Dad, offensively, especially now, if you don't have Saquon Barkley going forward, you're down a more dynamic weapon in an offense that already didn't have a ton of them as it tries to take the next step this year.
So Matt Breida going to be the guy if Saquon can't go. You know, at times we've seen, certainly when Barkley's out, Daniel Jones lead the team in rushing. So we'll see where that goes. But I'm happy because I didn't see it in game one. Now, again, it was horrible weather, but they were down a lot, so they had to throw the ball. I'm glad to see the new guys getting involved. You mentioned Hyde. He had 2 catches. Waller had 6. And finally, Paris Campbell got into the fray a little bit, having 4 catches, though averaging just 5 yards a catch. So they weren't pushing the ball downfield with him. But I was at least happy to see the new guys, because that was the one thing they wanted to do, was bring in some talent for Daniel Jones. Okay, we're going to pay you all this money. We got Saquon under contract for the 1 year. Now you need some people to throw to. You know, it was Darius Slayton last year who had a few catches in this one, 3 catches, did average 20 yards a catch, but they needed more, and they got more, and they used it a little bit more yesterday, really out of desperation when you're down by 20 points. But what a monster test this offense is going to have against that San Francisco defense.
And I think with the Giants, the tough part is every week is going to feel like a referendum on that Daniel Jones contract. It's going to be, and because that's, hey, what is the future of your team going to look like now, because you've at least latched the interim version of it onto your quarterback in Daniel Jones. I think the tough part is also going to be, Dad, just the division they play in right now.
Without a doubt.
We look at them as, all right, we're still looking for the answer. And the contract with Daniel Jones reflected that, is we don't know what our final form is yet. Philadelphia, you know what the final form is. That's why even in the early going of this season, we've kind of looked at their results and said, all right, well, we still know what this roster is capable of on the top end. We still believe they've got elite personnel, and so they're ultimately going to get a pass during the early portion of this season that a question mark team like the Giants, albeit a team that made the playoffs last year and won a playoff game, is not going to get, because I still don't know if we look at that roster in the said same way. And then you've got the Dallas Cowboys in there, Dad, that while I get it was against the Jets this weekend, that Dallas team looks every bit as complete as what we expected going into a year where a lot of people are picking them to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Dallas looks like the best team in the NFL right now, but we're 2 weeks in. So that's a statement. Have fun with it for 2 weeks. You know, all the Dallas fans out there and Jerry Jones, everybody ecstatic.
Hang the banner. Best team in the NFL after week 2.
All the Dallas haters are saying, just wait. They'll show up and see who they are. And the big question there is going to be Dak. Dak had a big game yesterday, but we know what he did last year. The one constant you're going to have is that Dallas defense. My God, they are elite. I know the one player from the Jets said, we're going to have a historic defense. He was basically just told to sit down, right, by that Jet. Yeah. Now, the Jets defense is an extremely good defense. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be one of the top defenses. But Dallas's defense right now is playing on another level. Micah Parsons is out of his mind. He was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year, and people say, oh, way to go out on a limb. Well, it's not my job to go out on a limb. Not my job to go out on a limb when you pick a Defensive Player of the Year. You don't want me to pick a backup defensive tackle to go out on a limb?
I mean, you walked out on the thickest limb on the tree.
Yes, because it's going to be true. He is a one-man wrecking crew doing it from everywhere, and he's not alone on that defense. That defense is absolutely stellar. That division, let's give it to Washington, no matter what you want to say. Now, they have a 35-33 win against Denver. We'll get into that one where Hail Mary, knock it down, for God's sake. But they're 2-0. 3 teams are 2-0. 1 team is 1-1, and the only loss in the division is a division loss. They haven't lost to anybody outside the division at this point. So, and that's a division that had 3 in the playoffs last year.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It is time for Mic'd Up Mondays, presented by Wrangler. Time to take in some sounds from around the NFL. So, fellas, Ravens defeated the Bengals yesterday. Another ugly loss for Cincinnati. And to add insult to injury, Joe Burrow did not leave the game unscathed.
We're going to have to wait and see. I'm not sure how it's going to feel the next couple days. It's pretty sore right now, but no telling how it's going to feel. So I think we're going to take it day by day.
How did you tweak it?
It was on the play before the last touchdown.
Aggravating, that injury. You hate to see it, limping around a little bit. And guys, after signing that record-setting contract, Joe Burrow has had a slow start, which is typical for him because he is 1-7 in his team's first 2 games of a season in his entire NFL career. So those first 2 games of a season, straight up confirmed not good. His record 1-7, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 227 yards per game. So this is kind of what he does.
You know what? And I just want to take a brief pause here because Jessie said something that I always wondered if we get right. Adding insult to injury. Isn't it injury to insult? Because the insult is that they lost the game, and then the injury is Joe Burrow's calf being re-aggravated that we knew was an issue going back into training camp. So wouldn't it be adding injury to insult?
I guess it would. That's what was my thought about rate and review. I thought you reviewed and then you rated.
Okay,
well,
so
no, those are separate things. Is you can rate the podcast and also review it.
Okay,
these are separate things. I just always wonder if we get the order wrong when we say this. Is not saying Jessie got it wrong. It's just saying we as a society.
You're saying Jessie got it wrong.
So the dictionary is defining it as it's just a saying. So it's not. It's just a saying, and it's to do or say something that makes a bad situation even worse for someone. So you're putting it in a football context, but obviously you can use it for anything when someone's not actually physically injured.
You know what? I guess that's a good point. Is we're using it in a context where it is quite literally injury added to insult.
It is,
and yeah, that's the biggest portion of all this, right? Is Jessie mentioned the stats about Joe Burrow at the beginning of the season, and I've been on record for a while. Most of the early NFL season games just become a pseudo preseason. It's why, quite honestly, I think that 0-2 stat, while it still holds water in the expanded playoffs, we've still seen it hold that way, for the right teams is a little bit less damning overall. I do look at this and say, for the Bengals, I'm not worried about them as a team being 0-2. I'm worried about them being 0-2 with a quarterback that hasn't looked himself physically because of that calf that now once again has popped up in a way they got to explain in front of microphones.
So a couple things. First, Cincinnati's had 17 possessions so far this season, has failed to score a touchdown. 9 of those possessions ended in 3 and outs. I mean, it's obviously not what we're used to with them, but I'll say this. You know, the old Allen Iverson, practice. We're talking about practice. It's one thing Joe Burrow may need in the preseason. I'm not saying preseason games, because let's remember, he not only isn't playing in the preseason games, he's not practicing. The one offseason he came back off the knee injury his rookie year. The other one, he had an appendectomy to where he would forget preseason games. He wasn't even practicing. So, and then this one, when he hurt the calf, he missed a ton of time not even practicing. So I think there is something to actually getting on the field and practicing and getting your timing down, him being 1-7 in his first 8 games of his career, the first 2 games of each of those years. So I do think there is something to that of getting on the field. And remember, I'm not saying preseason games, got to really care about those, but practice when other teams come to town. When you have those.
Well, yeah, I would say like him practicing, yes, would be an objectively good thing. But you mentioned he's been hurt in all those times.
No, I understand.
He couldn't.
No. I understand. So that's why I'm willing to kind of push this aside because, oh, by the way, they've done pretty well, even though starting out bad in the season. So that's all I'm saying is I'm willing to put this away. And if this kid ever did get to practice in a preseason, maybe it would be different in the first 2 games. But this is tough. These are 2 division games they lost, and he still got the calf.
All right, well, let's go from one loss to another. This one in more dramatic fashion. Jessie, did you bring your ski mask for today?
You know what? I keep looking around for it, but I must have left it at home with all of my other ski stuff. Seahawks defeating the Lions in OT. Seattle safety Jarek Reed II went live on Instagram after the game, dancing with his teammates in the locker room. And you know what? The celebration, it looked pretty familiar. The Lions safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, started this after that Week 1 win over the Chiefs, and then he asked Lions fans to show up to Ford Field in the ski masks, and alas, as one does, he ends up getting trolled after the loss. They take his celebration and they turn it into something to mess with him.
That's the ultimate, that's showbiz, baby. You live by the bleep talking sword, you die by the bleep talking sword. And Seattle came prepared, right? That was preparation meeting opportunity. They had those ski masks in the bag when they were ready to come out, and they got it done. So the victors go the spoiled. Good for them.
Yeah, listen, that's exactly right. If you're going to throw it out there, you got to be ready for it to get thrown back in your face. Plus, I never really thought it was a great idea anyway. I'm hot and sweaty after a game and putting on a ski mask. Yeah. I mean, that's just not happening. I'm going to feel like I can't breathe, and I'm ripping that thing off. So yeah, I never liked that idea.
And knowing me, I cut the holes in the wrong spot, and I'd be looking out the side of one. It just, you know, you got that's a very specific hole cutting skill set there. My favorite part of this game, though, was Geno Smith once again inserting his way into the best soundbite of the week. Did you guys hear Geno Smith arguing about intentional grounding with the referee? We can listen here.
Intentional grounding, offense number 7. It's a 10-yard penalty. I'm talking to America here, excuse me. It's a 10-yard penalty and a loss of down. I mean, second down.
That is the best
talking
line
to America here.
So we'll get to the penalty in a minute.
That sound was,
he just told Geno Smith, I'm talking to America. Pete Carroll is livid.
That
sound was courtesy of the Fox broadcast there. So Geno Smith, 2 for 2.
2 for 2. The 2 oh my God, when Aaron Donald's rushing him, and now I'm talking to America. That's awesome.
Must see TV. Must see TV. Jesse, let's get to our last soundbite here quick.
Yeah, okay, so Chargers fall to 0-2 after that frustrating loss to Tennessee, which continued a very frustrating trend, guys. So it was the 4th consecutive one-score defeat for LA, dating back to last season, including that wild card loss to the Jags. You know, you remember that one. Chargers held a 27-0 lead late into the second quarter. And Brandon Staley was not pleased when a reporter brought this up during the post-game presser.
I'm not worried about the Jacksonville loss. The Jacksonville loss hasn't carried on to the season whatsoever. If you've seen our training camp or you've seen the way we've played in the first 2 games, it hasn't had an impact on our team whatsoever. Our team is connected. Our team has played its heart out in 2 games, and we've lost 2 tough games. But it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And if you ask anyone in our locker room, it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And that's just the truth. It's a convenient storyline for you and for everybody else, but it's not the truth. We've lost 2 tough games. But the guys in that locker room, the men in that locker room, they are finishers and they have what it takes, and we're excited to prove ourselves.
Saw a lot of stuff on the internet being like, kind of seems like it is affecting them a little bit.
It seems like it's at least affecting the coach a little bit right there. That's the I'm not mad, don't write in the papers that I'm mad. Because, Dad, that seems like a coach who's under a bit of duress right now. I think on the larger scale, we've seen a lot of people point to Brandon Staley and say that could be one of the first coaches that's really under the hot seat and potentially on watch for this season.
I think he's frustrated. He's mad. I don't think last year's Jacksonville game had anything to do with this one either, quite honestly.
No, but
it's
part of a larger dialogue around what Brandon Staley's Chargers have become.
I agree. They have been underachieving as far as we're all concerned, and I'm sure they're concerned. And just when you want to say, why do they keep Ryan Tannehill a quarterback after 3 interceptions last week? Here he goes, 20 of 24, 246, a touchdown, no interceptions, and makes you think, okay, he's the guy that can at least, manage this team, because in all honesty, they don't have anybody else.
No, and I think that's the problem, though, is if you're the Chargers, you're one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. You're a team that we've always looked at and said, hey, if you can stay healthy long enough, man, what this could be. You're too talented to be losing to a team with the quarterback that you just said, well, he's out there to keep the steering wheel hands at 10-2 and get us through this thing. And so we knew it was going to be a tough matchup. I always go back to this. You can't be a head coach losing on your side of the ball specialty. That defense has been the problem. He has not yet been the solution.
When I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me.
What about me would make you think that I care about your opinion of me?
That's just how I feel about it.
Let's give him some. These are the shades. I'm gonna give you these. I just want to see how y'all look here. You look good. I look good on my mama, on my hood.
Dad, the spectacle that was the Deion Sanders experience over the weekend on College Game Day was everything we could have wanted, honestly, from start to finish. That experience out in Boulder, Colorado, where Colorado narrowly comes back to beat Colorado State in a game that all of us looked at and said, why the hell are they going out College Game Day to a game where the Colorado Buffaloes are 23.5-point favorites against a CSU team that nobody has watched so far? And then they got repeatedly punched in the face over and over again over the course of that game. But in the lead up, we got Deion Sanders slinging his sunglasses to great effect over the course of that week after that Jay Norvell sound heard around the world in the lead up to this game. All of this, to me, Dad, circles back to what Deion has been able to do. He has turned this into the biggest show in college sports right now. They're not the best team. They're not going to be a playoff team. I have a feeling we're going to get a more and more realistic sense of things in the coming weeks, but that was blockbuster at every turn. And if you are Colorado, who I'm sure is going to spend most of the rest of this year holding on for dear life as other suitors come in and start to see if they can get a piece of Deion Sanders or pry him loose to go and do this for their program, this is proof of concept in a lot of ways. And it continued on the field for them as they managed this win as well.
And it's going to, winning is going to beget more winning. We're going to find that out, but players, right? Whether it's an 18-year-old recruit coming in or someone from the portal, which obviously Deion is not afraid to go to. And Deion has actually said he thinks where they are with the portal now, it's actually going to hurt 18-year-olds, seniors in high school getting scholarships D1 because teams are going to look for the portal just like he has. So you're going to get guys, if they want to transfer out, good players to go play for Deion and what's going on there. Because, and I agree with you. In fact, you're calling the game this week, right? Oregon, Colorado is going to Oregon. They have Oregon, USC back-to-back. You're really going to find stuff out now. You're probably going to be without your top player in Travis Hunter, the two-way stud who got hurt on what we all think is a cheap shot in this game.
We know it was a cheap shot.
We'll get to this game. But he has got that program in a short time turned around. Again, not to playoff level, but this is a 1-11 worst Power 5 team in the country, or right there. And he has turned them around and got them going in the right direction like a rocket ship. So it's really now about building. His son Shador is jumping up the charts from the NFL side of it, rightfully so, the way he's playing. Great 98-yard drive he had to come tie this game. It wasn't the prettiest game in the world, but I love what Deion said after. He said, you know what? we found a new word to go with here, and that's resilience. You get you take the win however you get it. I know they were 20-some plus, favorites here, and they were supposed to blow them out, and they didn't, but they got the win. And you take that and you move on to next week.
We've seen Deion's team now win in 3 drastically different ways, right? Underdog against an old rival in Nebraska in a game where they ended up pulling away considerably, and then winning in a barn burner here. So that is another bit of proof of the coaching job that Deion has done with this team. This whole thing I also mentioned was proof of concept. It's one that a lot of other people are trying to wonder, hey, will it be a copycat thing? Will more people try and do this? This weekend, there was the reminder, no one you bring in as a coach is going to be able to get Little Wayne to come out and perform on campus and also be cool enough to go vibe at the front row of that thing. No one you bring out there is going to immediately have the respect of Dwayne The Rock Johnson and all the other people. You're not going to be able to find a star like that in many other portions of this. It's some of the other things related to the portal, related to the roster trend, related to all that people are going to go after there.
He has the cachet, right? I mean, he's primetime.
He's cool.
I mean, he is. And again, not every great coach. In fact, very few great players become great coaches. It normally doesn't happen that way. But he has proven now that he knows how to coach. He has said, and you never know what's a ploy or not, that he doesn't want to coach in the NFL. He would rather coach the 18 to 22-year-olds where he could have more of an effect on them.
Well, I always wonder how that style would work in the NFL.
Well, exactly right.
Where you've got a coach that's a bigger star than some of the players, and the way that game works, not only ego-wise, but just functionally, mechanically every day, where you're more equals than someone who can have these kids looking up at them bright-eyed going,
exactly
bleeping Deion Sanders.
Exactly right. So I think college is better suited for him right now.
I mean, the testament to what they've done is they got most people to stay up till 2:00 on the East Coast to watch the end of this game. I had just finished the West Virginia Pitt game that I was on the call for, needed to get up at 4:00 to drive to the airport the next day, and still couldn't bring myself to turn away from the end of this in a game where that Colorado State team looked more physical all game. It was super borderline. That hit on Travis Hunter was dirty, and unfortunately it's going to mean he's off the field for the next few weeks there. But them finding a way in a game where Deion Sanders had the ultimate motivation, right? He said, they might not have said it explicitly, but they came out and insinuated that my mama didn't raise me right.
Yeah.
And Deion Sanders couldn't in good conscience go and take the L to that man after all that.
Yeah, it's a great soundbite extra from Deion's mom as well on that. But yeah, in this game, I mean, Colorado State had this game won, right? But 17 penalties for 182 yards.
Yeah.
More than a few of them personal fouls. This kid, Muhammad Kamara, I love him as a player. I mean,
there's some big burly boys on that Colorado State team.
This dude is a wrecking crew, but in overtime, 2 personal fouls in a row. One, and the second one got him tossed when he buried Shador and just basically drove him into the ground. He got booted for that one. They're a line-stepping team. I guess that would be the way to put it.
Yeah, right? They're habitual line steppers,
they are
at least in this game.
Yeah, they definitely were in this game, and there was certainly a little more bad blood in this one. There were some late shots. Listen, there was a shot of Shador Sanders trying to poke, Kamara in the eye.
Was that Shador or was that Travis Hunter?
I think it was Shador. I'm not positive. Okay,
yeah,
I guess I should find that out. But I thought it was Shador. But either way, a player tried to poke Kamara in the eye. I mean, there was a lot of bad blood out here, a lot of line stepping, a lot of late hits. And you're right. Unfortunately for Travis Hunter, that's going to cost him a few weeks.
Yeah. So we're going to see what becomes of Colorado here in the stretch of their season where they're going to play the Oregon Ducks. They're going to play USC. It's going to start to get real for them real soon here. And what that response looks like is going to be interesting. Dad, it also got real pretty soon for Alabama this weekend.
Yeah, it did.
There's a number of things in a college football slate that was pretty lackluster over the weekend where teams didn't quite look themselves, right? A lot of top teams played down to the competition, so to speak, but maybe none more so than Alabama that started this game making a quarterback switch from Jalen Milroe, excuse me, I almost went Joe Milton. From Jalen Milroe to going to Tyler Buckner, the Notre Dame transfer. You're playing South Florida. You end up having a lightning delay in here. They come out and then put Ty Simpson in, the other quarterback, to try and get a look at him. And Alabama ends up sneaking out of this with a win, Dad. But all along the way, people were looking up, trying hard to recognize a Nick Saban team that has looked like this in recent history and can't.
Listen, it's not just the quarterback, right? The offensive line is struggling. They got a true freshman out at left tackle who's a large young man, but he's struggling. Others on the O-line are struggling. This is not the Alabama team we're used to, but it's also a team we're used to seeing a quarterback Look at the quarterbacks that have come out of like the Alabamas of the world and the Ohio States of the world, and both of them are breaking in new quarterbacks. Ohio State at least is stuck to one. Name me the last time Alabama 3 weeks into a season has gone to 3 quarterbacks, not because of injury, because of bad play. But that's where we are right now with this team. And I hear people saying, oh, they got to figure out the quarterback. They got to find a quarterback. Gang, this is it. This is who they got. And they're all of a sudden not magically going to start to learn how to throw. It doesn't work that way. And you don't hit the portal in week 4 of a season. So they have who they have right now. It's going to be a very difficult road.
I think the point is, though, they need to figure out which one of those guys is going to be the guy for them going forward, and they need to build around that identity, because that, to me, has been the problem. Is this has been an offense that for Alabama has lacked an identity for the first time in a while. They shifted away from that old school boa constrictor approach where they choke the life out of you with a Mark Ingram or an Eddie Lacy. And now they have gone to a more high-flying attack led by the quarterback here. We know new coordinators on both sides of the ball. That includes offense with Tommy Rees. And as they've been trying to mix and match and figure out the quarterback, I also think it's left them without a real understanding of who they are and who they're going to be on offense. So I think that's why you got to anchor with the quarterback and then figure out who you're going to be on offense. That's for them to decide, because they've seen them all day in practice. Coming up next, we'll decide our all-weekend team from the world of sports next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. All right, after a full weekend of NFL and college football, it is time for the guys to look back and give us their all-weekend team. So we're going to go first team, second team, honorable mention. So fellas, who you got?
Yeah, let's start off with the honorable mentions for the weekend here, Dad. A lot of great performers. Usually this is where we hit on the world outside of football.
Right.
But football just gave us too much this weekend, and it is what it is. I want to start off with my honorable mention here and go to noted Swiftie, an all-around clever human being, Ian Eagle, who this weekend was on the call for the Chiefs game and reading into recent rumors about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, which Jason Kelce didn't squash on Thursday Night Football last week. Heady play by a content king himself. Iron Eagle on the call, third quarter. Travis Kelce gets loose on him, a home scramble for a touchdown. And Iron Eagle cleverly works in there that he found a blank space and wrote his name. So great reference. All-timer there. He also made a Cisco Thong Song reference later in the broadcast. So really dynamic stuff for Ian.
Ian's got a great sense of humor. Wasn't there also a split screen of Taylor Swift on stage in some boots and Travis Kelce walking in with some
Louboutins
boots that were made? Okay.
I mean, that one felt like a little bit of a reach to me. I'm not going to lie, but
we are
at
reaching.
This point,
okay.
Listen, Dad, part of being a Swiftie and living in that universe is looking for Easter eggs and signs and hints everywhere. And so we're trying to see if he's continuing to play the game like he did at the start, sending her the bracelet with the phone number.
Okay. I mean, impressive out of them. Let's see where those two crazy kids can take this. My honorable mention goes to actually Carlos Sainz from the Singapore F1. He won that race, and really it's only Carlos. What?
No, I was getting ready to celebrate. Go.
It's only Carlos because it wasn't somebody from Red Bull.
Yes,
that was.
Yes.
This could have been any name, any manufacturer except Red Bull. Red Bull had won the last 15 races, and we know Max Verstappen has been out of his mind in this, but they have won the last 15 races. They finally lost. It was Ferrari and Sainz that won this one. And Red Bull didn't even make the podium in this one.
Wild.
They go from 15 in a row to not even on the podium. I think Max ended up in 6, Max Verstappen. So a great job for all of F1 outside of Red Bull for finally getting Red Bull out of the top spot in the podium and out of the podium altogether.
I was traveling and I saw Jessica Smetana, your co-host on Golic and Jessie, tweet about the finish to this race and I ran to the race. I was like, I need to see what it looks like when Red Bull doesn't win one of these things. So it's been a tough run for the sport with its outcome seeming almost certain for a while now. Hopefully brighter days ahead. Dad, let's get to second team all weekend. I am going to go with Missouri, big boy kicker, the thicker, Harrison Mevis. 61-yard field goal after his head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, inexplicably took a delay of game penalty that could have completely screwed them over at the end of this one. I do not understand what was going on that Missouri sideline, but Harrison Mevis drills a 61-yarder to upset Kansas State at home for the Missouri Tigers here. Incredible win against a great team. Vegas had a weird line on this one all week and apparently knew that this big boy with a howitzer leg was lurking on that sideline.
There's something to see in a 40, 45-yard field goal game winner, but 61 yards when you're not sure you got the distance. So you know the guy's got a big leg, but then it's accuracy as well. Seeing that go through, I mean, and the students couldn't wait to hit the field for that one.
Hell and by the way,
that.
all you freaking nerds out there between here and Colorado that want to tell college kids to act like they've been there before on field storming,
seriously,
you're dorks. Leave it alone. Let them rush the field. It's fun. It's college. The people are there to make sure that they get down and do it safe. All the security guards and cops. We don't need you policing it. We're good here. Let them have a good time.
If you want to jump on somebody my age running on the field, limping onto the field, trying to celebrate, go ahead. That's fine. But the college students, are you serious? Leave them alone. Let them have some fun. Who cares? I mean, I think that's ridiculous. Okay. My second team is going to be Shedeur Sanders. I mean, again, another excellent game out of him as Colorado comes back to win in overtime, 43-35. He goes 38 of 47, 348, 4 touchdowns, does have an interception, but it was the 98-yard drive that did it, where they scored with 36 seconds ago and then made the 2-pointer to tie it up to send it to overtime. As he said, he just pulled from his inner Tom Brady. He said he and Tom talk every week. And I think one of his lines after the game was, if Tom can do it, I can do it. Or if he can do it, I can do it. I mean, the kid's sure of himself, and he's proven a hell of a lot of it. But to calmly just 2-yard line, 98-yard drive, you need that to tie the score. And he takes him down. It ends like on a 46-yard passing touchdown. But to lead that team, and then the 2-pointer, and then to go into overtime again, where he got drilled by Kamara, who got tossed after that hit. A nice show of, as his dad said, resilience, but 98-yard drive when money was on the line, he got it done.
Coach's son out there. He's got that kind of poise.
Yeah, he does.
It's been really remarkable to watch. You mentioned Mel Kiper's got him shooting up his draft board.
Fifth in the listing for the draft on his big board. He has a number 5 right now.
Yeah, I'll be interested. This is going to be one of the deeper quarterback classes we have seen in quite some time coming out of college football this year. I think the thing with Shedeur that's so interesting is he he's done such a good job with that poise, I think is the number one overall thing for him, because he's not a dynamic run threat by any means. He's mobile enough to get you out of some trouble, but he's not like a true dual threat where you're going to be using his legs all the time or you expect him to take off and run. He doesn't have that other gear, but he's got just enough to move around. And kind of like we see the Mahomes and some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, the Burrows and company, is you're mobile enough to get out, move around, buy time, but always have your eyes downfield. And that's what Shadour's done.
So, and that's, I like that. I think at times more than a guy that can run, though a guy that can run is obviously a big time threat. But the problem at times is you have more confidence in your legs than your arm. So you're going to look to take off instead of making the play downfield. Shadour, you're right. It's not that runner that you're going to say, uh-oh, watch out for him running. He's going to escape to try and make a play down the field, which can be even more dangerous. So love that style. Love what he's done right now. As we said, test the next 2 weeks, Oregon and USC. This Colorado team is going to get the biggest test. But let's be honest, a lot of us never thought we'd be talking about this far, that they're 3-0 going into their next game.
And to their fair credit, so far they have aced every test they've been a part of.
Yep.
It has been 3 weeks, 3 very different settings, 3 very different outcomes, all of which have been positive for Colorado. Dad, let's get to the third, or excuse me, to the third.
That's coming up in a little bit.
Yeah. All these segments are the same and just get different names. Welcome to Sports Talk Radio. All weekend first team here, Dad, was a pick for both of us. Yep. Lee Corso.
Yeah.
Man, watching the 400th Lee Corso headgear pick this weekend out in Boulder, and to see the piece they did going back through and chronicling all the years. One made me feel old seeing young Herbie, young Corso, that whole group, and just how long they've been doing this together. And thinking back, I know, Dad, you were colleagues with all of them for so long, but I remember being a kid, like we saw all those coaches. They interviewed Lincoln Riley and a lot of the current coaches, and they talked about watching them as players and what that meant to them. And I can remember being a player sitting in our hotel room before the lead up to games, watching College Game Day and waiting around for Coach Corso to see what was going to happen there. He's been an institution in the sport. He's one of the great ambassadors, and it was fun to see him get celebrated this weekend.
I mean, and they showed that piece. You saw him coming out of that piece. He was teared up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's the man is an absolute legend at what he does. And remember, he was a coach for so many years. The legendary story when he was coaching Indiana, how bad they were. I think it was after the first quarter, they were beating a top team, and I think it was Florida State, and he had the team take a picture of them with the scoreboard with the lead on that game before I'm sure it went the other way. But he'd always loved telling stories like that. Some of them true, I'm sure some of them not true, but who cares, right? When you're going back decades. But what a great guy, what an institution, what an entertaining man. He has been doing this for a long, long time, certainly closer to the end of his time doing the show than the beginning. We all understand that. But he's out there putting that headgear on, still entertaining. It was great to reflect and just realize, wow, he has been doing it for this long. Sometimes you just kind of take it for granted and forget the past a little bit.
Yeah, I think seeing that testimony from all the other guys on the crew, obviously that relationship with him and Herbie has been so special. Lee also mentioned everyone sticking with him after the stroke that we know he lived through a few years ago and has been battling through since. But you look at certain places, right? March Madness in college basketball has Dick Vitale as someone who's been that entertainer and that banner for the sport for so long. For college football, that has been Lee Corso, and you've seen it reflected in ratings, the conversation around the sport. No matter what everyone's doing, if you watch all of College Game Day or not, you tend to make it there for the end to see if the coach is going to drop bleep it, fire off some guns, and which head he's going to throw on for this weekend.
He's going to be at Notre Dame this weekend.
Come on, Coach, make the right call this weekend. We'll be back in a second here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, everybody. I am Jessie Cofield, live from our Boston studios. We are going to continue our NFL Week 2 weekend recap, including the one that went down in our own backyard. Pats, Dolphins, and here to help us do just that, we have a special guest in studio, Ross Tucker, the man, the myth, the legend, friend of the program.
What's up? It's nice to actually be here. Thank you, guys.
Ross, looking good out in the studio, man. Thanks for joining us today. And thanks for giving us some insight into the most important portion of the game that we watched last night on Sunday. No, I'm not even going to get the one that's going to tick you off yet, Ross.
Okay.
Ross Tucker, for anyone that hasn't followed or been a part of the Ross Tucker football show and the podcast and the great things he's doing over there, Tuck spreads have become an institution.
Yes.
Ross going on the road, calling games, making sure that everybody knows which press boxes and stadiums are going to have the best eats here. You were on the call, and we'll get to all the game action from the Patriots and the Dolphins last night. But, Ross, what was the spread like, brother?
You know what? New England perennially is top 5 in the league. Very, very impressive. They had multiple salad options, which I appreciate. And then they had some slaw. But the key was 3 different proteins, guys. They had terrific chicken. It was so moist and delicious. Then they had pulled pork. They had brisket. And then they always have the chowder. Get yourself some chowder. You know you're getting yourself some chowder when you're in Boston. So that was awesome. However, a little bit controversial because the star of the show when you do a game in New England is these gigantic cookies they have. They have like peanut butter chocolate chip cookies or double chocolate chip cookies as big as my face, which is, as you can tell, huge. They didn't have them in the press box. Thankfully, I came down from the press box. I went to the radio booth, which, as you guys both know, maybe the best radio booth in the NFL. It's like right next to Tirico and Collinsworth. It's right there. They had the cookies there. So I want to get your opinion on something. This is very serious. I'm trying to not be too much of a fatty. So what I kept doing was, rather than taking a whole cookie, I was that guy that kept breaking them in half and only having a half or maybe even a quarter of the cookie. The problem is I probably did that 8 to 12 times throughout the night, so I really didn't end up saving myself anything, I don't think.
Well, it just makes us feel better, right? That we're not just jamming the whole cookie into our mouth. We've all been there. We'll take a piece, thinking there's a little bit of you that says, maybe I won't eat the whole cookie, but we all laugh at that and scoff because we know we're going to eat the whole cookie. I have to say, when you first mentioned there's a lot of salad, that would automatically knock it down in the Golic book for sure.
Fair point.
So we're not big into that. What I want to ask you, Ross, what's the best one? Do you have an ultimate clear-cut winner of stadiums around the NFL?
Well, so for me right now, there's two. It's tough to tell because I've only done the Thanksgiving Day game the last couple of years. But the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry, Grandma, I'm sorry to my mother-in-law. The Dallas Cowboys have by far the best Thanksgiving spread I've ever encountered in my entire life. Anything you could possibly want for Thanksgiving, they have. That's been like the real positive of being away from my family and working on Thanksgiving the last couple of years is just like the sliced ham, they have like filet, and then they have all the turkey, all the stuffing, all the traditional Thanksgiving stuff as well. It's just remarkable. I love it. But I'm also really partial, guys, to Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay, so it's a tough place to get to, but it's my favorite stadium in the league. And then the game starts at noon. So you get there 3 hours before the game. You get there at 9 a.m., omelet station. And unlike most omelet stations in the United States, there isn't a line 10 deep of people waiting for an omelet. I love omelets. We all love omelets. But usually I look at the line, I'm like, I don't have time for that. Not Green Bay. They got two guys with two pans each. So they're both double fisting. So we got 4 omelets going at the same time. So I'm able to get my omelet. I go down the field, talk to some dudes, come back up to the booth. They have, again, you guys don't like this, but I do. They have the best salad bar in the league. And then they usually have pulled pork and mac and cheese, which to me, I'm at the stage of my life where mac and cheese is like a condiment. It's like a topping. So I get a whole layer of pulled pork and then just put a couple dollops of the mac and cheese on top, like as a layered thing there. Because the key is to get some mac and cheese in every bite of the pulled pork. So I crush that, and then guys, halftime. The NFL is killing me. They keep cutting it down. I go 2 brats at halftime. Not many mere mortals can have 2 brats in 7 minutes, but I can.
Ross Tucker, built different. That's what people need to take away from this. Is
so true.
If you think your favorite analyst is built somewhat like him, I can assure you they're not 2 brats at halftime, not in that time limit, not in these constraints. So it's a remarkable look at the most important part of covering sports. This is the side that most people don't get to see.
Right.
And so thank you, Ross, as always, for shining light on that. The Ross Tucker Football Podcast is where you can get more of these fantastic reviews and some NFL analysis to go along with it. And Ross, why don't we start with Sunday Night Football last night? Patriots, Dolphins, what we saw out of this matchup here. We were all going in looking at this Miami offense and this Patriot defense, wondering what Bill Belichick was going to do to try and slow down this unit. What did you see and how effective they were or weren't?
Well, they focused on Tyreek Hill. And not surprisingly, Tyreek said before the game he expected to be doubled. He was doubled a lot during the game. And I think that might be, guys, why I'm so impressed with the Dolphins, right? They showed they're not a one-trick pony. They're not just throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill all over the place. Raheem Mostert and the Dolphins ran the ball very effectively against a good Patriots front. Look, this is, you guys know, you both played. This is the chess match that goes on from week to week in college football and the NFL. Okay, Tua throws for 466. Tyreek has 215. Belichick's not going to let you do that. So what's your counterpunch to that? Well, the counterpunch to that was they threw the ball to some of the other guys, and they ran the ball with Mostert. I got to tell you, too, I don't know that we give Tua enough credit for the touch that he puts on the ball. I mean, every week there are multiple beautiful throws. He doesn't have the big arm, but even on the move, he is able to drop the ball right in the bucket. The one throw on the sideline to Barrios was so impressive. So I think this Dolphins team is for real. Their defense looked very, very good last night, even though they didn't have Jalen Phillips. And so I think we might need to start talking. I mean, look, we all know about the Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati, but through the first couple weeks, the Dolphins might be the most impressive team. I mean, 2-0 on the road at the Chargers, at New England. I'm not sure anybody's looked better in the AFC so far, at least early in the season, than the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, what they were able to do, and you guys as offensive guys would love, 30 passes, 30 runs. You saw New England playing some 3 deep early on, so Miami saying, fine, we'll run the ball, and Mostert had himself a nice night running the ball as well. And you're right about Tua. There's completions and then there's completions. When Tua can get the ball to you when you have the ability to make yards after the catch. It's not just a completion if you have to turn backward or jump too high or go down low where you can't do anything after the catch. He lays the ball out there extremely well. On the other side of that with New England, this, as we've talked about, this is the Mac Jones year. Is he going to be the quarterback of the future? I know we're just a couple of games in, but what do you see out of that offense that would maybe give Patriot fans any hope for where it's going?
You know, Mike, it's interesting because I guess I kind of feel like Mac Jones is almost the least of the issues for the Patriots. I mean, you watch them, that's 2 games now, they can't run the ball at all. I mean, they can't run the ball at all. And when you have pedestrian wide receivers like the Patriots have, and you don't have an elite quarterback, I think Mac Jones is a good quarterback. You know, I think the upside for him is maybe being between the 10th and 15th best quarterback in the NFL. They got to be able to run the rock. I mean, the way this team is built, and I think that's probably what jumps out to me, guys, watching them against the Eagles, watching them against the Dolphins. I mean, let's be honest. Their players aren't as good. Their roster's not as good. So what that means is they have a much smaller margin for error. So if they're going to have Demario Douglas fumble in the red zone, if Mac Jones is going to throw that pick to Xavier Howard in the red zone, they're not going to be able to win games. Same thing happened against the Eagles the week before. They just have a smaller room for error than other teams because I don't think they're very talented. I think they're middling.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people look at the offenses like Miami's, like San Francisco, that make use of a ton of motion, that employ a lot of clever schemes, and think that, oh, well, those would be good things to cover up when you've got a lack of talent. This isn't college football. Those are done to exploit matchups when you've got extremely talented players and ones that are capable of shouldering a lot of load. When you're a team like New England, you can't run that because, to Ross's point, you don't have the dudes. This is a Jimmy's and Joe's problem, I think, for New England, especially offensively. So it is going to be a struggle to make chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what in a lot of cases this year. But, Dad, you said it before. The Patriots are going to be in every game they're in this year because of that defense and because of the special teams. Ross, last night, I think we might have seen the coolest special teams play we'll see all year. The running field goal block. Brendan Schooler comes in for the New England Patriots and catches the Dolphins napping, gets that block. Ross, this is a copycat league. Do you think we're going to see other teams trying to pull this off in the future?
Well, there's no doubt. And first of all, speaking of shouldering the load, can you guys do me a favor when I'm done with my segment and I watch the rest of the show? Is there a way you guys can get a little bit closer to each other? Maybe. I want to see if your guys' shoulders can actually touch while I'm talking to you. Dude, I am loving. Please tell me, Mike Jr., that your mom is taking a picture of you guys sitting there that close to each other while we're talking.
Oh, yeah, this can be part of the Christmas card without question, Ross. She's been trying to find ways to do this for years, and so I think she's the one that put our directors and producers up to just before the show tell, hey, we need you a little closer. A little closer. You want to just sit on Santa's lap? I mean, it's ridiculous in here.
Oh, man, I love it. But no, in terms of the, I love, and I know you guys are the same way, I love when you see something in a football game that you've never seen before, And that Brendan Schooler off the edge block kick, that was so cool. And it makes sense, right? Because he actually has some momentum. He has some speed when he hits it off the edge. So we are going to see that. Now, what's the counter to it? First of all, it looked to me like Christian Wilkins wasn't ready for it as the wingback. Those wingbacks will now be on red alert for that, right? So they'll be looking for that. So it won't be as easy. But still, the point is, the guy rushing off the edge is no longer starting from a standstill or from a stop position. He's got the momentum, which helps. So now what you'll see is you will see kickers and field goal teams have to change up the count a little bit to try to get those guys to false start. I still think teams should do it, though, because you can't tell me on that 55-yarder by the Dolphins later in the game that kicker wasn't thinking about it. I think, they're just not used to their peripheral vision seeing motion coming from that side. And you know the way kickers are. They got to be so locked in. They're like golfers. If you can do anything from the side or whatever to distract them at all. So I think even if you can't block it, just having guys run in from both sides, just trying to mess with the kicker's head seems like it's worth it.
All right, one more on this, and then let's move on to some other games. The question about the thick sixes are here, the thick first downs, and what was your thought? Mike and I differ on this. 4th down, last drive for New England. Mike Gesicki catches the ball, knows he's not going to make it to the first down marker, turns, pitches it to Cole Strange, the offensive lineman, who goes forward trying to get the first down. Very clearly obvious to me he did not make the first down. Mike thinks the officials have it in for the big guys and not giving them the first down.
Haters.
What do you say, Ross?
Well, you know what? First of all, Mike, kudos to Gesicki for even thinking about that and doing it, right? I mean, it's 4th down, right? The game's over if you get tackled. I love that Gesicki even thought of it and lateraled it. And then Strange, we can't lose sight of what's important here, which is that Belichick, once again, as a genius, understands getting the ball to your athletes in space, right? He understands get the ball to your most gifted skill position guys. Gesicki with the hook and lateral back to Strange. I mean, Strange is 315, and he skied in the air for that, and what was pirouetting through the air as he caught it. He got hit 3 yards short of the line to gain, had a couple of his buddies push him forward. I thought it was close. Look, he was probably a little bit short, but can we not look at that? Can Terry McAuley just be quiet? And can we not look at that and just say, you know what, close enough, okay? I don't think it was indisputable visual evidence because my O-line colored glasses thought it was one of the most beautiful things these eyes have ever seen. Unfortunately, he was a little bit short.
Yeah, listen, rule of cool applies here. If the play is cool enough, it should stand. I firmly believe that should be a bigger part of sports in a day and age where we're so focused on robot umps and VAR and what Hawkeye that tennis has here. Sometimes when cool stuff happens, you need to not look a gift horse in the mouth and you need to walk it on over to the stable and take it for a ride here. It's honestly disgusting to me that Robert Hunt, also Hall of Fame, big, great guy over on the other side, who at one point was on the receiving end. You remember they were trying to throw a screen and the ball ended up going to him instead of the running back, and he advanced it gloriously to great fame over the end zone, and only for it to not count because that's against the rules. And so he had to look on the other side now and watch it to happen to his big guy brother and Cole Strange. It's a travesty, a sham, and a mockery. It's a Travis sham mockery. I am completely with Ross. Get the ball to your best big athletes in space.
Can we be done? Can we be done and move on from this?
You know what's funny, guys? I was on the radio call for both those games. I was on I think so when people are like maybe having a little bit issues with their faith, okay, in life, that's all they need to know. God put me, as Golic Jr. always tweets, God is good. God put me in the booth for both of those epic O-line athletic performances with the ball in their hands.
Oh, man, that is a beautiful thing. Won't he do it, Dad? Won't the Lord look down and shine his light? Ross is a vessel for large excellence here, you need to be more cognizant of that. You should be ashamed of yourself, too. You and hating-ass Terry McAuley.
Here's what I say. The Lord throws a bone to the worst athletes on the field every now and then. To you old linemen.
You're done. Why don't you move on and ask him?
You know what, by the way? Hey, Junior, how is it possible that your dad was that athletic that he played D-line for a decade in the NFL? I mean, that's crazy. D-linemen in the NFL are ridiculous athletes. And looking at him sitting next to you right now, he doesn't look that athletic.
I'm 60, Ross. I'm 60. What do you think happened?
You look like a 60-year-old narp.
Oh, all right, onward we move. Do you have any concern with the Cincinnati Bengals being 0-2, even though Joe Burrow has had a propensity to not do well in the first 2 games of the season in his career?
Well, so I would say the concern there, Mike, is just Burrow's calf. You know, he was limping and gimpy towards the end of that game, and he had one of those, whatever they're called, Theraguns or whatever, trying to make his calf feel better. It looked to me like he aggravated or re-aggravated it, whatever you want to say. And so the concern there is how does that affect him moving forward? And the AFC is rough. The AFC North in particular, I think, is a very good division. We know the Ravens are already 2-0. You really can't afford to fall that far behind if you want to be hosting playoff games.
It really is going to be the challenge, and I think that's what we both echoed before is, yeah, that's fine. We know your best punch hasn't come early if you're the Bengals, but if all of a sudden you're not capable of throwing your best punch because of injury, life can get a lot harder there. Ross, we could sit here and do this with you all day.
Yeah,
Thank you for speaking truth to power, as always, with your platform as a large, excellent man yourself. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you very soon when I kick Dad out of this chair.
My pleasure, and I'll be watching the next segment just to see if you guys can touch shoulders for an entire segment. Just touch.
This conjoined broadcasting twins here.
Thanks, Ross.
The Ross Tucker
Appreciate
Football Podcast. Check it out. Great stuff as always.
You'll be happy. In another minute, we go to break. You and Ross can chat, in the break and get giddy about O-line play.
Oh, listen, you're just mad because he said you don't look athletic.
I mean, what is that? I'm a 60-year-old man. What does he look like?
I mean, listen, honestly, if we want to get serious about the career, I was a fat offensive lineman my entire life. I can never have claimed to have been one of those O-lineman athletes, the guys, like Zach Martin, Mike McGlinchey, guys that were like basketball players in high school and stuff. I was one thing my whole life.
Yeah.
You did get less athletic as you went along because you started off as like a linebacker and you did a bunch of stuff. And then they slowly, as you went up in level, just kept pushing you hand down onto the ground and then further into the line here. Yeah. So they were sending you a message about your athletics.
They were, that I was a good athlete. I was a really good athlete in high school. I was a decent athlete in college, and I was not an athlete in the NFL.
Yes, exactly. There are levels to this. Tim Legler always tells great stories about that relative to the NBA. You can tell them about the NFL. Coming up next, though, let's look ahead to Monday Night Football and a matchup in the NFC South next here on GoJo and Golic. What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield out in Boston with us. And I had the realization today, it was like a nice little surprise, like finding a 20 in your pocket when you pull it. You don't do your own laundry, but when you pull a 20 out of the laundry, occasionally. Mom does your laundry, which means she finds the $20 bill in the pants.
Well, it's just a nice way to say you live alone.
Yeah, I'm a single father of none, which means I got to take care of my own business. I'm an INDEPENDENT man.
Huh?
Do you know what that is?
Independent man.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. But when you find that 20 in your pants pocket coming out of the dryer, it's a great surprise. I forgot we're in Monday Night Football doubleheader season.
We are.
We get spoiled all weekend long, multiple college games on, the whole NFL action, 7 hours of commercial-free football. And then you get to the primetime window, it can sometimes feel lonely. We got Panthers and we got Saints tonight, and we've also got Steelers and we got Browns tonight here. So, Dad, let's take a look at both of them. We'll start off with both division games, which is pretty cool. Panthers, Saints. This is going to be a tough one for Bryce Young. I think in my preseason predictions when we were talking in Kansas City, I may have mentioned the wrong quarterback in terms of the 4,000-yard range.
Yes.
Because so far, C.J. Stroud is cutting this thing loose out there in Houston. Now, his O-line's a little banged up, so he doesn't have much time to throw it, but he's been getting after it out there. Bryce Young, we saw in week 1, struggled to find targets to throw to, and I don't know if this New Orleans Saints defense is going to be the place where that gets any easier.
No, I don't think it is either. Frank Reich's talking about, the coach in Carolina getting more chunk plays. His longest completion was 14 yards. I don't know if that's happening, and I don't know if you want to worry about that so much right now. You lost your best receiver in DJ Moore in the trade.
Yep.
You do have Adam Thielen there, but you have Miles Sanders in the backfield at over 1,200 yards, albeit behind the best O-line in football in Philadelphia last year.
Life's a little different right now.
And with a quarterback that could run in Jalen Hurts. But he's a good running back. I still think you need to try and be as balanced as you can and not worry about chunk yards because, New Orleans is a pretty good defense as well as far as getting pressure on the quarterback. So, I mean, you pick your spots, and I don't think we're going to worry about chunking plays too much out there other than getting a balance. The balanced offense is going to help your young quarterback more than anything else. If, God forbid, you actually have some kind of a rushing attack, you're going to help your quarterback. Because you mentioned C.J. Stroud, first quarterback in the first 2 games, over 80 pass attempts, no interceptions. He's not turning the ball over. So I'm not so worried about big plays downfield. I think they'll come if your offense is balanced enough and you work into that instead of just looking for them. So I don't agree with we got to get more chunk plays.
On the other side, looking at chunk plays, that life could be a little bit easier for the New Orleans Saints because, one, you have Michael Thomas back into the picture last week, and what a welcome sign. Yep. I know we're still going to always wonder about what the ceiling looks like for Derek Carr. That didn't look like the most explosive offense in football week 1 against the Titans, but they got to win in a close game. And one of the guys that used to be a hallmark of this team, now Chris Olave, probably the best receiver on this team now, based on what injuries done. That's been the issue for Michael Thomas. But if he could go out there and still be a major factor in your offense, that's a coup for this team that's still got Alvin Kamara in the backfield and is going to face a Panthers team that doesn't have J.C. Horn in the back end now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this defense for New Orleans gave up a few chunk plays in their first game in their win over Tennessee. But I think one was a long run to Derrick Henry. So I just don't foresee that happening. And I just think Carolina needs to build it a different way with the talent they have around them right now.
So you've got that ready to go. Brian Burns in the lineup. We know that guy was obviously another one of those camp conversations around a big contract for him there. So going to be interesting. Dad, ultimately looking at this game, New Orleans a favorite at home in this game, understandably so. I expect them to be able to pull this off right now just because I think the matchup is the worst possible thing you could hope for a young quarterback who I still think is remarkably talented. I still think Bryce Young is a great player, but I think we just saw that it's going to be a common problem all year. There just aren't a lot of people on that offense capable of getting open and helping their young players.
That's exactly right. He's still there's no one that really to carry right now until they build more talent around them.
So let's look at the other game then, Dad. And this one to me is another interesting proving ground. Week 1, we were so excited about Pittsburgh, that defense coming off of a preseason where they looked really good, and we probably put too much stock in that. I say we as the collective media, not necessarily you and I. And they got humbled against the 49ers defense that we knew, one of the best in football.
Right.
I want to see how it looks now against the Browns defense that might try and insert themselves into similar conversation, because you look at week 1 and the Cleveland Browns defense was one of the clear winners. And so now are we going to see, is that transferable, especially inside of the division? And is this Pittsburgh Steelers offense going to have the same tough sled in the head with Myles Garrett staring you down instead of Nick Bosa on the other side?
Remember, Jim Schwartz, the new D coordinator in Cleveland. He's an attacking type player. Any defensive player loves to play that kind of style, though it can certainly leave your outside guys on an island.
Thankfully, they got the dudes
That's
out
exactly
there.
right. If you don't get home, you're on an island a little longer. But they're pretty strong at all levels. Linebacker, and certainly secondary. I picked Micah Parsons as my defensive player. Didn't go out on a limb. You didn't either. You picked Myles Garrett, who Jim Schwartz, like Micah Parsons in Dallas, moving around from different spots, still playing the edge a little bit more than he has, doing the same to Myles Garrett. Well, Myles Garrett is playing like a linebacker and walking up and, Euro stepping it up to the line. I mean, seriously, that freak of nature doing that. I mean, but moving him around to different spots, what Schwartz is doing, the guy's a terror on what he can do to an offensive lineman, to a young offensive line here in Pittsburgh. So a huge edge to this Cleveland Browns defense in this game.
Yeah, and you're right. It's going to be who's Myles Garrett going to disrespect this week by playing a different sport. Maybe he'll try badminton or something. We'll see what else he can demonstrate.
Pickleball, got to be, right? That's a new
go with
thing,
the hot one right now.
Yeah, that's it.
Get someone. I don't even know what kind of I haven't played pickleball yet. I think that's one of the things on the to-do list while I'm here in South Bend is for me to just go and exert my dominance against a non-athlete like yourself.
Can I just say, if you and I play pickleball, I will beat you.
I mean, that's just not.
Can we get a live stream of that? Can we get like somebody?
Yeah, we'll make sure someone's rolling on that, so we've got that done. Because I promise you, I'm not.
Me and your mother are going to play against you and Jenny, your sister-in-law. Jake's back is a little stiff right now, so you're going to team up with Jenny. So the two 59 and 60-year-olds are going to beat the 33 and the 31-year-old, or however old Jenny is.
I say I'm just worried about Jenny being in the liability here because I'm comfortable in myself.
Jenny already said that she is going to be so distraught if I beat her, me and your mother beat her, which we're going to do. We're going to beat you and Jenny. We're going to. Because the thing about it is you don't have to worry about a power game. Because pickleball is not a power game.
Brother, power's never been my game. As a football player, I was never bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else. I'm a technician, and I'm better at ping pong than you. So all of this put together is going to translate into this.
Are you just pulling that out of thin air? When is the last time we played ping pong to give you any indication you're better than me?
These are one of these things I just know. Like sometimes, faith is believing without necessarily seeing. I've got a lot of faith in this situation. I've also got Jesse. What?
Well, I was just going to say maybe we should make this interesting. Maybe we put the shirts on the line, the shirts that are living in Senior's closet.
A loser leaves town match for the shirts.
Wow, good call.
All right, so if I win, the shirts are coming out of my closet. And you can never wear my shirts again.
Or you can leave them there and I can never wear them again. I will honor that.
No, I'm putting them back in the closet and you're not to touch them anymore. All right. I don't even want you looking at them. Not even if there's a fire.
If me and your mother win, I can go into that closet anytime I want.
Yeah, I mean, you already do.
No, but if we have a bet on this.
Without complaint.
Yes. I would say you will get free run of the closet if you win this bet here.
All right. Oh, man, you're going down hard. You get frustrated because when we go putt-putt as a family, putt-putt golf, you're the first one to throw the putter. So I'm going to get in your head. We're going to get in Jenny's head as well because she's so worried about losing to a 60-year-old man with a gray beard.
You never got in my head with miniature golf. I just wasn't performing up to my standard.
Which is what's going to happen.
Because I care very much.
You're going to hit the ball into the net. You're going to hit the ball long. Next thing you know, the paddle's going to go flying somewhere, and me and your mother are just going to be there he goes again. It's
going to be like a 5-minute warm-up. We're going to feel this thing out, and then we're going to cut it loose here. That is how we are going to spend our Monday night football prep as we get ready for the doubleheader tonight. So stretch out, don't pull anything, and remind your parents that they aren't worth a damn. One of the things I am interested, Dad, one matchup to look at in this Monday night doubleheader for the Steelers and Browns. DeJuan Jones getting the start. Jack Conklin out at right tackle for the Cleveland Browns. TJ Watt lives here. And one thing we saw, even the San Francisco 49ers, as good as they are, if you don't have a plan for that dude on every snap, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So plenty to watch as we got 2 football games coming up tonight on Monday Night Football.
Me the whole time? Why were you poking
me? To make a point. Ross said he wanted us touching
during this. You don't have to point and hit me.
It was like a massage, too, because I know your shoulders are very weak and sore.
Stop it!
All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We got this, that, and third coming up in about 10 minutes here to send you off on into your way. But, Dad, it is almost the end of week 2. We got 2 more games coming up tonight, and that means it's time to revisit the stat. One of the preeminent stats that gets brought up every year in the world of the NFL about teams staring down that 0-2 hole. We know historically it's been bad, but since the NFL even went to 7 playoff teams in each conference going back to 2020, only one of the 23 teams to start the NFL season 0-2 ended up reaching the playoffs. That was last year's Cincinnati Bengals. And so even in a world where it is easier to make the playoffs than ever, 0-2 has still been a darn near impossible hole to climb out.
And we can add 2 to that tonight. If Carolina loses, they're 0-2. And people had higher hopes for Pittsburgh, and if they lose tonight, they're 0-2 as well.
Yeah.
So that could be kind of a downturn for what people thought their season might be.
And I think it's a good reminder, right? You mentioned how different that gulf is. Carolina, this season was about Bryce Young.
Right.
This season was about making sure he was comfortable, seeing what you had in other certain spots and building towards the future. And so not being a playoff team, albeit in an NFC that's comparatively weaker, still not necessarily the thing that worries anybody. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, hey, we talked about the AFC North like it was going to be the Thunderdome, and that Steelers team was going to be a big reason why. And all of a sudden, if you not only fall into an 0-2 hole, but, Dad, the offense is like last week where it doesn't put on tape any of the stuff that we really thought we were going to see, now you've got concerns. So far, we've got Cincinnati back at 0-2 again.
Right.
Houston at 0-2. Denver, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears, and the Arizona Cardinals. Dad, who are you most worried about in that group, and who are you least worried about in that group as far as the 0-2 hole actually being indicative of the season?
So not Cincinnati, because they've been there before and they've come out of it. So while I haven't seen the greatest player in the world out of them, I'm not really as worried about them. Who were the other team? There was one in there that you mentioned. That
Houston, Denver, the Chargers, Minnesota, Chicago, and Arizona.
The Chargers. I just think that's a team that has been, we keep expecting more and they keep underachieving, at least by our standards. I'm sure by their standards, they're expecting to do more. I think Staley, their coach, is definitely on the hot seat. As you mentioned it earlier, his side of the ball, your strength, is not playing very well. They can't stop the run for anything. So I would say I would be worried about that team. A team we thought, I don't know if we thought they would challenge Kansas City, but thought would be clearly the second best team in that division and fight for a wild card spot and have a pretty good year. So that's the team that kind of has me scratching my head a little bit of, when are they going to make that jump?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. The Chargers are the most disappointing. I think they've got the most existential questions to ask about their team's future. And after you mix up the bag, I saw Dan Orlovsky tweet about this, and I thought it was true. Kellen Moore comes over as your offensive coordinator. Yeah. What have we seen demonstrably different about the offense so far? We haven't really seen anything show up. Now, I know this last week they were without their star running back, and so that was certainly going to affect things a little bit as Austin Eckler was out with injury. But overall, it didn't look explosive in week 1. We knew maybe they were trying to exploit an inefficiency, in the Dolphins defense. we're still kind of waiting to see there.
The one thing I'll say is they've scored the second most points in the division outside of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, this is a damning stat. The Chargers are the 33rd team in the Super Bowl era with 50 or more points and 0 turnovers through 2 games. And they are the only one of those teams to start 0-2. So the production would say, hey, better days are eventually going to be here, but are they going to be here soon enough to save the job of your head coach?
Right.
Because right now, for Brandon Staley, he seems to be the one, hey, we keep changing stuff and it doesn't keep working. Usually an organization is going to go back and say, hey, coaching is going to be the thing that we carve out as the issue with that. The other ones that have been interesting, Dad, because I think Minnesota, we expected some regression this season based off last year. Winning that many close games, not sustainable, not a real thing. The Chicago Bears have been colossally disappointing so
really
far.
have.
Not just in the fact that they are 0-2, but they are 0-2 and seem listless, Dad. We came off week 1 with people asking questions about the effort of one of their star wide receivers. And in week 2 offensively, there just does not seem to be a plan right now. We talked about this a little bit with Alabama football and not understanding who their quarterback was, but as much as anything, not seeming like they have an identity that they can point to. For the Bears, it feels like more of the same. They finally targeted DJ Moore a little bit in that wide receiver room, but it just still seems like they're a bit helter-skelter on that side of the ball in a year where they shrugged off the number 1 draft pick. They traded back because they felt like they had the quarterback. And yet it's the same problem from the prior administration where it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to play to the strength of the quarterback.
So do we think 2 games in that it was a bad move to not trade that spot or trade Justin Fields to get one of the top quarterbacks?
No, I still think it was the right move.
I do. I agree. I think it was the right move. And you're still building around. The team was a horror. We're talking about what that roster was last year, kind of what Arizona is now. It's just a bad roster that you have to build around. And where you're building around Kyler Murray in Arizona, we're not even sure he's going to be the quarterback, even though he got paid. And we're going to have to find out about Justin Fields. There's a lot of people that feel split on Justin Fields. I personally like him and was waiting to see that next jump this year. We know he can run the ball, but you have to be able to pass it. And getting DJ Moore we thought would help as well, but you have to build pieces around it as well. But if you want your quarterback to be the franchise quarterback, and at times they have to stand out, even if there isn't some of the other pieces around. He's not a rookie anymore. He's got some starts under his belt. So for a lot of people, it's going to be, okay, start showing us some things, even though there's not a great roster around you that says we need to continue building around you.
Yeah, I think that one's been colossally disappointing because, I mean, based on 2 weeks of the season, we're going to start having conversations about the Bears as one of the worst teams at football.
They absolutely are.
They're going to be in that vein with the Arizona Cardinals, with maybe the Washington Commanders, because so far the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have kind of looked at that and said, shrugged it off.
And wait a minute, Washington's 2-0 as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a cute 2-0.
No, it's not.
As someone that was a Washington survivor pool survivor in week 1, that was not a great experience.
No,
I wouldn't recommend it to many of my friends, but this was those 2 teams, you're right, have absolutely bucked the trend of what we thought they were going to be. Arizona, listen, still sitting in that 0-2 hole and still very much going to be in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick, but that's by design. Like, again, we read off the names of these teams here, and there's a bunch of them that I don't think were designed to win a whole lot of games this year or had rookie quarterbacks like Houston.
So again, I mean, with Arizona, that we're not going to be talking about them in the midst of competing for anything, but you've paid your quarterback and paid him like he is going to be the guy. And if you falter this year and get a top pick, this is a quarterback-heavy draft.
Oh, they're taking it.
I mean, they got Kyler Murray in after they took a quarterback and Josh Rosen, the year before, the 10 slot? And they said, we don't care, we're getting Kyler. So they don't care about that, but they did pay an awful lot of money to Kyler Murray to possibly dump him this year.
I will say the other person could be in that range because, again, we look at this group of teams that are at 0-2. Arizona, not really worried about. Chicago, unfortunately, that seems like that's trending in the wrong direction. Minnesota, we expected a slide. Yep. Houston, rookie quarterback. Cincinnati, we think will be fine. Chargers on thin ice. Denver's the other one. Talk about if this keeps up here. Denver financially going to be more able to get out of that Russell Wilson contract this offseason. And if it doesn't keep going that way, Sean Payton is going to cut bait from that quarterback too.
Yeah, yes. Listen, Sean Payton's not going anywhere.
No.
I mean, when you said talk about look at the future of the team, it's not Sean. And then for big money guys, it's about where's your dead cap hit? How much money is it going to cost you? Is it feasible? Is it post June 1st? The whole deal comes into play on what costs you the least amount of money to get rid of somebody. Now, listen, they put up some points yesterday. You saw some good plays out of Russell, like Sean Payton likes, right from the pocket, making some nice throws. And then you saw Russell Wilson do what Russell Wilson does, take off and run. You saw an inexplicable completed Hail Mary pass.
That was awesome.
By Denver, getting a touchdown, but then missing the 2-point conversion. How you complete a Hail Mary, knock the damn thing down, 2-point conversion. They got screwed a bit. There was a holding in the end zone that should have been probably called in that play, but it happens. You know, you were in that position, so you can't live and die by that referee call. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I guess a lot depends on the season that Russ has, right? Because you can have a bad year as a team, but can Russ look good enough to where Sean Payton says, let's just continue to build around this?
Well, we'll see if he's even got an opportunity to, because we know coming up now, they're going to be on the road at the Dolphins. They'll get a little reprieve going on the road against that Chicago team we just talked about. But then home versus the Jets, at Pittsburgh, home versus the Packers, and then home versus the Chiefs again. Excuse me, the Chiefs were that team I mentioned on the road. So not going to get any easier schedule-wise for this Denver Broncos team that hasn't been able to put it together so far. So that's going to be the issue. Russ cooking, I agree. That was one of the two spots. We deserved more, a first down out of that Patriots Cole Strange play, and we deserved a 2-point play to count and send us to overtime after that Hail Mary. We'll get into overtime here next with this, that, and the third. All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Let's finish things off with this, that, and the third, the way we always do. 3 quick stories to send you off on into your day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating. Check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel, DraftKingsNetwork.com, and Samsung TV Plus, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. That's all 5 of those days of the week. Guys, let's get to this. The age-old question, especially in the world of sports talk radio, Dad, one of your tried and true and very used to. What's the hardest thing to actually do in sports? Most of us are speaking from like experience in Little League, stuff that we've done along the way, but very rarely what you get at the highest level here. Enter Deion Sanders in this conversation, famous two-way athlete who laid his, at least, opinion on what the most difficult thing to do in his sports career was. Take a listen. Oh, just kidding. It's not actually a soundbite here. That's my fault.
Nice pull.
You know what? Hey,
Well
listen.
done.
That's showbiz, baby. No, Deion Sanders went on to say, apparently in a tweet that has also been deleted now that I can't find, so this is going perfectly, that hitting a baseball is a lot harder. Dad, say words while I figure this out.
Listen, I have said this all along. I mean, and I was not a two-sport professional athlete like Deion Sanders was, but we all played, probably Little League baseball growing up. I do think the best athletes in sports are basketball players. The toughest, outside of the boxing and MMA, which you have to be tough, are hockey players. I'm looking at team sports. And the hardest thing to do in sports, I think, is to hit a baseball. I mean, it is incredibly hard, the round bat and the round ball to try and hit those. I do think is the toughest thing to do. So I agree with him on that, though he has better practical application than I do in that. So you could take his words a lot better than mine.
I do think it's just a math thing, too. When you look at that's a sport, even for the professionals, the best in the sport, success is still like a third of the time.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You look, those guys, Hall of Famers, are able to do that only that frequently. What about the rest of us? Would be completely humbled. It's not to say the rest of it, like trying to gain a yard. I saw that clip from New Heights where they brought Shannon Sharp on to ask him if Skip Bayless would get a yard in an NFL game. And no, the average person would die before that happened. Like trying to hit a baseball would be the one most likely to let you walk away with your body intact. Football would kill you, but it's still the hardest thing to do, I think.
I think absolutely it's the hardest thing to do. And imagine that. If you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're going to be set for the rest of your and your kid's life money-wise.
I mean, listen, if we want to talk infrequent success, though, if you're a defensive lineman and you get 1 sack and 1 TFL a game, every game of the season, you're also wearing a gold jacket at some point. So it's not like your job is all that hard either.
What's wrong with that?
Make 1 play a game. That's all you guys have to do.
You know how hard it is to do that?
Yeah, 1 play a game. And sometimes you don't even get blocked, and that's the play, and people just ignore the fact that the offense made the mistake, but the defensive guy gets credit. It's ridiculous.
They understand the great athletes that we are.
Oh,
move on.
God.
Move on. Don't screw this one up.
Let's move on to another collection of people trying to make a difference as opposed to the individuals over on defense, Jesse.
Yeah, Dartmouth men's basketball trying to unionize, okay? So 15 men's basketball players forming a union here. Very interesting. This is the second time a college team has attempted to unionize in the last decade. Last time it was Northwestern football, tried to do it in 2014. That attempt ended in 2015. It was denied. So interesting here. And Dartmouth has come out and said, like, we respect unions and we're going to, take a look at this petition and speak with our players and try and figure this out. But an interesting play to be trying to unionize.
So, Dad, what I'd say is this. I think we're getting closer and closer to a time in college sports where, this is going to be a bigger part of the conversation. And the unionizing of athletes, whether it's in a world where Power 5 football breaks away and begins and starts as its own separate product away from the other sports, like we've batted about through all this, that would need to involve collective bargaining, unions. It would need to involve a revenue split, all these things that would make this somewhat vital. And that's because the product has become so clearly professionalized in a way that's difficult to ignore, that the relationship has now become employer and employee. This year's Colorado is going to be a fascinating exercise in that, as you basically had a coach that made cuts after spring ball. He was allowed to, but again, it all reeks of anecdotally a relationship that's become employer-employee. I don't know if Dartmouth basketball is going to be the thing that necessarily drives that case home in the same way, just because you do not think of Ivy League athletics in the same way that you maybe think of Georgia football, Power 5 football, and the dynamic there.
Well, I think if this is going to happen, it's not going to be one team, even Georgia football or Alabama football. I don't think one team is going to do this. I think it's going to have to be a collective of either starting with a conference or just going right to all of, whether it be basketball players, football players, however it goes. I don't think one team is going to do. One team may talk about starting this like a Dartmouth, which would, I think, then lead, I don't know if in this case it will, but at some point leading to the bigger discussion of saying, okay, let's every team in this conference try and unionize, or every Power 5 team, or every football team try and unionize, because then, as you said, it gets bigger. Someone's got to run that. Someone's got to be president of that. There's got to be a CBA. Who you're negotiating with? Who's the collective of university presidents? Are they picking a person?
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many steps to where this thing has to go. And I guess they say, it starts with one.
Right.
We tried it with Northwestern, didn't work. Dartmouth, I don't think it's going to work. But I do think there will be a legitimate attempt at this. But there's got to be a lot of ducks in the row before this happens. A lot of questions have to be answered before you go down this road.
And we've seen enough important coaches and officials who have said, yeah, I would have no problem if we just made this like the NFL.
Yep.
Because remember, for a lot of these coaches, that would make their life a lot easier than having to manage the current system of scholarships, but also you've got collectives and NIL money, and you've got the portal, and round we go. Most coaches, I think if you caught them in an honest moment, would be heavily in favor, especially at the Power 5 level, of just calling this what it's been for them for quite some time, and then doing away with the charade that's existed everywhere else. So good luck to those boys at Dartmouth. I hope it goes well for them, and we will see, Jesse, what might happen there. Unfortunately, let's talk about some disappointment as we get to the third here, as a little bit of the NBA rest problem has worked its way into MLS after this past weekend.
Oh my God, Atlanta fans were crushed when they found out that Messi would not be with Inter Miami. Basically, this game lost all its celebrity juice like 18 hours before kickoff. Messi opting to rest, remain in Miami. A sellout crowd, everybody wearing Messi jerseys. Even the Inter Miami, even the Atlanta fans are like, yes, we can't wait to see Messi. Nope, he did not come. I think I saw there were 70,000 people in the stadium. So obviously a ton of frustration, but kind of to be expected here with a player like Messi. He's your star dude. You need to rest him up before the last games of the regular season. And he would be playing on turf here.
Yeah, there's a couple different angles to this, Dad. And you saw there were we've seen the ticket prices soar for all the Inter Miami matches since Messi came over there. So you've got people paying hundreds of dollars, flying out. This has become an event. This has become a traveling band around the world of Major League Soccer in America. But their side is saying he's already played more games than we expected in the early going here with the team. And so we've got to manage that. And then there's also the playing surface factor. We talked about that relative to the World Cup coming over here, the frustration of NFL players here. But this is a very NBA problem that we've seen of people banking on one thing when you've got maybe one opportunity to see a player like this in person and then getting another and being disappointed.
Yeah. And this is one, I can absolutely see both sides of it, right? That a player, because if I'm correct, he hasn't taken a break yet, right?
No.
I mean, he's played in all the games. So he is 36 years old. He's not like he's in the beginning of his career. And at some point, you would have thought this might happen. And just to run him out there, remember, it's the team's responsibility to do the best you can as a team in the long run here. So I feel for both sides. Now, has basketball gone a little too far with this? Yes, and they're trying to take steps, the NBA, which we've talked about, and we'll talk more about it, of steps to not have guys rest as much, especially the stars of the league. This one's tough for me. If he hasn't taken a break yet and you're, trying to do what you're trying to do at the end of the year and get him some rest, you have to pick a spot. Now, some may say pick it at home where a lot of the same people are seeing the games over and over, some new ones, as opposed to on the road where it's a whole different crew that has never seen it.
I think it's all about communication, because with how late in the game this was communicated, it seems dishonest by the parties involved. And this is an overall MLS thing. This is your star commodity, a guy that you brought in. I do think you owe it to fans to communicate that effectively about where and when he's going to be. I can understand the concerns about the surface, rest, and all of those things, but communication should be at the forefront when it's people's hard-earned time and money. We value your hard-earned time and money. If you liked ours, download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating. Thanks so much. Enjoy Monday Night Football.